When we're learning to draw in a self-taught sort of way, where we don't do a course, we don't go to a class, we don't have a teacher, we don't have a set curriculum that we're working through, then lots of decisions we have to make ourselves, lots of things we have to discover for ourselves. Where we put our time and effort, we get to choose. As I've said in other videos, we in fact have to be our own teacher as well as our own student. And most of us have little experience in that, which can make what we end up doing and try to do and how we do it a bit of a lucky dip. Now, I'm not a trained art teacher, but I am a trained teacher. And when I look at what seems to me the process so many people are using, it seems from my point of view that the focus is consistently being put in what I think of as the second area, the second side of learning to draw, when in fact it's putting the right focus into the first side of learning to draw, which in my understanding and in my experience is actually critical. It's in this first area that the key to being able to really take advantage of the second area is to be found. And it's because we haven't paid attention or have enough understanding with this first area of learning to draw that we can end up with so many problems when we start and tend to stay in the second area. Let me start by just explaining what the second area of the drawing process is, and you can work out whether this has been where your focus has been, and possibly therefore the reason why progressing, why improving, why gaining confidence in the drawing process perhaps has been so hard for you to find. The second area of focus when we learn to draw is what I think of as the technical skills. All the things actually connected with the ink appearing on the paper. I say ink, but whether it's watercolor or graphite or charcoal, whatever your medium or media are, the technical skills are the things we use when we actually put these materials on our paper or canvas or whatever. So the technical skills includes things such as how we hold a pen, how we move our arm or draw using our whole body. It might involve practice on how to draw a straight line, tips for making drawing a straight line easier, techniques that give better results. Technical skills will include how to crosshatch, understanding perspective and applying it, values, lights and darks, composition, drawing circles, ellipses, as well as straight lines freehand, estimating distances and angles when we draw, learning to draw and keep proportions consistent and scale consistent across various parts of our drawing. All of these sorts of things I think of as the technical skills, and we use them, we obviously draw on them every time we draw. These are the things that we use in an immediate sense for our drawing to appear. And so it's not surprising that we focus on them. In fact, we can come to understand that this is what learning to draw is all about, that it's about learning these skills, and that once we have, we can create wonderful looking drawings. So, is this you? Is this where your focus has been? If it has, then particularly listen to what I'm about to say, especially if you're feeling like there's some fundamental key element that hasn't fallen into place for you yet with your drawing. It was coming to appreciate the importance of this, what I thought of as the other side of the drawing coin, this other focus, that for me caused everything to fall into place and let me really fast track my drawing development improvement, because this told me what I was trying to do, what I was going to use my technical skills for. This gave me direction and confidence in knowing what to use, when to use it, how to use it. And this happened when I began to think about, when I began to work out more, what am I trying to do when I draw? What's my understanding of the drawing process? And more precisely, what's my understanding of my drawing process? What is it that I want to achieve by the end of my drawing? Because if I understand the purpose of my drawing time and the purpose of what I put on the paper, it's going to guide me very precisely as to what to put, when to put it, how to put it. It's going to make clear what's relevant in this drawing and what may not be relevant. And knowing what I'm doing from the start, because I have a strong sense of the drawing process and how I'm using it in this drawing, certainly gives me confidence, which means I can use the skills as well as I have the potential to use them. There's going to be no nervousness negatively impacting the marks I make on the paper. Now, let me make clear, there is no one drawing purpose, explanation, understanding. There are lots of possibilities, but as I start to learn to draw, I need to be putting time and effort into understanding and learning what the actual drawing process might be, could be, what the possibilities, what the options are. Because this will, in the end, as I start to settle on how I would like my drawing process to be understood and expressed on paper, that I start to develop a consistency in how I draw. And I will also find that I start to achieve my purposes when I draw because I have purposes. I'm not just doing a little bit of this skill, a little bit of that skill, not being really sure what I'm doing, just hoping it looks okay at the end. Rather, understanding my drawing process guides me in all the decisions or the choices that I have as to how I'm going to try and put this on the paper. And a huge personal breakthrough for me in understanding and working all this out was when I came to realize that my aim in doing a drawing from a photo was not to produce a good copy of the photo. And I think so often this becomes the unrecognized understanding of the drawing process, at least when we draw from photos. I think particularly for people on a self-taught learning to draw journey, it's so easy to end up thinking that what I'm trying to do is copy the photo exactly, and the more exactly I copy the photo, the better drawing I've done. And of course we can have this as our goal, but to have this as our end goal may not actually be directing us to create the drawings we want to see at the end. Because while photos have lots of strengths, they actually have a lot of weaknesses too. And I realized that actually I don't want to copy the weaknesses. That in fact, as an artist, I had the opportunity to replace the weaknesses of the photo with the strengths of a drawing. I could use my creative imagination to see things for my drawing that aren't in the photo. Perhaps the most obvious example is that photos, the photographic process, flattens the effect of depth. It seems to bring everything a lot closer. It's why photos of trees are so difficult to draw compared to drawing a tree in life, because it makes all the leaves basically look on a flat two-dimensional plane. And that makes it very hard to untangle what we're seeing. But in life, of course, a tree is a three-dimensional form. As an overgeneralization, it's a ball on a stick. Some parts are closer, some parts are further away. Sometimes we see parts of the canopy through the gaps in the closest parts. All of these things are much easier to see and therefore to capture in life than in a photo. But in a drawing, I can inject the sense of reality, the effect of reality into my drawing by manipulating the sorts of marks I use and how I use them. That in fact, I'm not copying the photo. I'm using the photo as a starting point, as a springboard for how my drawing's going to look. This realization incredibly opened up a whole new scope of creativity for me to apply whatever technical skills I had to. But it's not just about depth. I came to understand in so many ways that when I look at something in life, because of the way the physiology of my two eyes and the way they're connected to the brain and the way the brain interprets what we see, and therefore the way I understand what I'm looking at, works in a certain way, that was the certain way, if you like, I wanted to capture, I needed to capture in my drawing through the ink on the paper that I did to create that effect, that if I could capture that effect, the way my body perceives reality, that I would create a sense of realism in my drawings. So instead of drawing the object, I'm trying to capture a visual effect of the object. And my starting point for understanding this concept was drawing leaves on a tree. The impossibility of drawing every leaf on a tree in most cases forced me to see the tree not as the little parts that make it up, but as an overall shape, an overall texture and form, complicated one. And that I wasn't trying to draw leaves, I was trying to capture that overall effect. And I have a playlist on trees and all things foliage if you're interested in going deeper in how this understanding can be expressed in terms of foliage. I discovered, ironically, if I tried to draw too much detail that I could see, then in fact my drawing would look less real. That to imply things but not actually draw them, to create the sense that they're there but not to draw them, done in a certain way, created far more sense of reality than drawing the detail of that reality. So now when I look at my photo reference, I'm thinking, what marks can I use to create the effect that's in this scene, whether I can actually see it in this photo or not, the effect that I know is there in life if I were looking at this rather than looking at a photo. So how can I organize my marks on the paper to create the strong sense of depth of plane that we have? That some things are very close, some things are close, some things are a bit further away, some things are kind of mid-ground, and then we start to get distant and far distant and then almost too far away to see. How can I choose my marks and the way I draw these things to create that feeling of distance, maybe 20 miles of distance in a two-dimensional sheet of paper that's maybe 1/4 of a millimetre thick. That's maybe 1/2 millimetre thick. But as well as depth of plane, how can I create a sense of 3 dimensions with all the elements that are in the depths of plane? How can I create the sense of a focal point that we have in life? Because when I look at something in life, I have a certain part that I have fixed my attention on that I see in more detail. And it becomes the center of my field of vision. And all the things around it, I see less clearly. We don't see things at the edges, around the edges, at the periphery, with the same clarity, with the same detail, with the same values that we see them at the focal point. So I understand my drawing process to be not trying to copy what's in the photo, but to inject all of these characteristics of a real view into my drawing to create the sense, the feel, the effect of realism. Can you appreciate how having a much clearer view now, based on my understanding of what my drawing process is about, what it's trying to achieve and how it might achieve that, it's now much easier for me to work out which drawing skills that I possess, which drawing techniques that I have, are the best ones to use and how to use them. I understand that I'm not drawing objects, I'm not copying shapes. I'm trying to capture how something looks in reality. I'm trying to capture its visual appearance. And I appreciate that the way something looks can change dramatically according to how far away I am from it, according to what the light's like, how strong the light is, and where the light's striking it from. It can change according to my angle of viewing the object. It can change according to the color of the object, or from the form of the edges of the object, whether they're sharp and pointy or rounded or rippled or fluffy. How something looks will change according to what it's made from. And it will also change according to where in the overall scene it is, if it's in the focal point or if it's in the periphery. I will almost certainly want to create at least a slightly different effect for how the same object might look according to where it is. And if after this you have a look at some of my more recent drawing videos, I hope you can see me put in this understanding of what my drawing process is into practice. In fact, I hope it will help you understand far more deeply what I'm trying to say in the voiceover of those drawing demos. And let me make very clear, because this was really quite profound in my understanding of process and of developing my own drawing techniques and style, and that's that when I'm drawing, I'm not outlining shapes. I'm trying to capture a sense of a three-dimensional form under certain conditions. And sometimes outlining a shape may be an important part of how I do that, but it certainly won't be the primary way I create the effect of lots of things in any one drawing. My understanding in this way was certainly helped when I stopped thinking of drawing with lines and I began to realize, no, I'm drawing with marks. Now, of course, lines are a certain type of mark, but there is so much more than line in terms of how we can arrange ink on the paper using our pen or our brush or our whatever. And I want to have all these options open to me so that I can choose the best one to create the effect that I want, that I don't draw a heavy outline if a heavy outline is not the effect in reality of that object. This truly revolutionized my drawing when I came to see it this way, when my understanding shifted to this. So having this understanding of what the drawing process is guides all the choices, all the decisions that I have to make in creating my actual drawing. Now, I don't always see it all super clearly before I start, but when that's the case, I experiment with my marks, and particularly for the areas where I'm not as confident of the best way to create the effect that I'm wanting, I play around on a scrap of paper, choosing different pens and using different marks to see what effect do I create how, and then when I actually start my drawing, I've got the confidence of knowing that I've been able to choose the most effective way to create the effect that I'm wanting. But if I'm watching videos that just encourage me to copy along, then I'm putting marks on the paper with no understanding why. I may not even have a sense of how it's going to look until it's finished. Presumably, the artist making the video has that understanding, but it's not being shared with me. And in focusing on copying their lines in real time, I'm probably not going to have the time or the space in my mind to try and work that out. And so I don't learn anything about understanding process. And it's the same when I spend my practice time just drawing straight lines, doing different hatching patterns. I don't get to understand the purpose of all of these. I don't get to understand the why, and it's understanding the why that gives me direction when to use these things and how to use them to create the effect I'm after. I hope it's becoming clear why I believe this focus of understanding the drawing process, of in fact understanding my drawing process, I don't mean mine, but the one that you might have or I might have, is so important because it gives us the direction that's otherwise missing. It means I'm no longer sitting there having practiced all these skills, but looking at a photo and still not having any sense of where to start, how to start, or what I'm trying to do. I haven't realized that I need to have an understanding of what my process is to get to the result that I'm wanting to have. No wonder I can feel confused and just not know what to do next. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. But look, in the end, however you understand the drawing process and whatever paths it takes you on, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.